Hey, what's going on, guys? In this video, I'm going to be breaking down and going over all of my AFC predictions, and I'm going to be giving a record for every single team. I'm going to be giving who I think is going to go to the playoffs. I'm going to be giving my seed rankings, and this is part one, basically, to my series of record predictions and stuff. I'm going to have 3 videos. This one is AFC. I'm going to have another one with the NFC. And then my last one is going to be, I'm going to be going over the whole playoffs. I'm going to be going over my MVPs. I'm going to be giving my Super Bowl champion predictions. Make sure you stay tuned for that. But right here, we're going to be giving every single AFC record predictions. All right, so if you're wondering how I came up with the exact records that I came up with, is because of this. I use this formula. There are 17 games. Every team has played 17 games. There are 32 teams in the NFL. Multiply those together, 544. And then that means that there have to be 272 losses and 272 wins for the entire NFL. And add those together, it equals 542. So these numbers are exact. There's no errors in these records other than opinion errors. Also, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Starting off with the 4th place team in the AFC East. I'm going to have to unfortunately go with my New York Jets at 6-11. Now, this Jets team has improved massively over the offseason, having a really good draft and having a good offseason, rebuilding their defense, their tight end room, getting a really solid offensive line. But this team is still one of the youngest in the league, if not the least experienced team. But they have a lot of upside, and I think this could be a team that could compete for the playoffs in the next couple of years. But for this year, I think Zach Wilson's still going to have some struggles. We're going to have some year 2 bumps, and the Jets I have at 6-11. For my 3rd place team in the AFC East, I actually have the Patriots having their first losing season in a very long time. Now, the problem with the Patriots is they didn't get better over this offseason, and they lost some key additions, that in J.C. Jackson going to the Chargers. But this team is still a solid team, and I can still see them having a winning record depending on how they fight through the first half of their schedule. But the Patriots obviously didn't get much better, and especially the way that the Bills and the Dolphins steadily improved over the offseason. I fear that it's time for the Patriots to start not being very competitive in the AFC East, and I mean, the Patriots are still without an offensive coordinator. That says something to how the Patriots are going. I'm going to have them in 3rd place. If you would have told me that this Dolphins team would be sitting at 2nd in my AFC East rankings, I would have thought you were crazy. But the way the Dolphins attacked this offseason after firing Brian Flores and starting off 1-7 last year, man, they traded for Tyreek Hill. They got Mike McDaniel from the 49ers. They're giving Tua a lot of weapons. They signed Teron Armstead. Javon Holland is going to be really good in year 2. They still have a good secondary. But I fear that the front 7 is going to be a little bit weak, especially without Brian Flores, who really elevated that defense. But this offense is going to be massively elevated. This year is a make it or break it year for Tua Tagovailoa, and I think that the Dolphins are a fringe playoff team. And they're going to have some hiccups along the way. They're going to have some bad games just because this is the first year of a lot of people playing together. And this team is still very young. They had a lot of rookies, especially because they had abundance of first-round picks. I'm high on this team, but I'm not very high on this team. I'd like to clarify. But I had them as 9-8, and I have them as one of my fringe playoff teams. To no surprise to anybody, I have the Bills as my first team in the AFC East. They're just one of the best rosters. They have Josh Allen, one of the best quarterbacks. Stephon Diggs is one of the best wide receivers in the NFL, and the roster is insane. But they've been beaten by the Chiefs twice now in big games. It just seems like the Chiefs are their biggest obstacle. And could they overcome that this year? Yes. I also see the Buffalo Bills getting upset quite a bit. I know they got upset by the Jags. Seemingly, all they need to do is to stop Josh Allen and stop the passing game, and then the Buffalo Bills have no game at all. But hopefully, with the addition of James Cook, their running game will hopefully get better. I have no worries about this team, and I think that they're going to be the best team in the AFC East. All right, don't let your Steeler friends fool you. This team is going to be 6-11. Look, the Steelers aren't that great, but they aren't that bad. They could be better than 6-8, but also they either have Mitch Trubisky or Kenny Pickett as their quarterback. Their offensive line is very below average. They just lost Juju Smith-Schuster. They still have a decent receiver core. The offense is going to lack Najee Harris is not a very efficient running back, even though he got a lot of carries last year. And the defense, without TJ Watt and without Minka Fitzpatrick, is a very bad and Cam Hayward as well. Without those three, it's a very bad defense. The secondary is getting a lot older. The linebackers are very weak. Unfortunately, this isn't the same team. And I know Big Ben, I know they made it to the playoffs, but there was no way in hell they're making it back to the playoffs this year, especially with the AFC North we're in now. In the same frame of mind, I don't want to let people like Wee Hoopin and all these big Baltimore fans that are thinking that the Ravens are going to be going deep into the playoffs this year. The Ravens have some major holes, especially at wide receiver, where the receiver core is the worst in the league. It's not even close. Other than Mark Andrews and Rashad Bateman, they have no passing game at all. They're a run-first offense with Lamar Jackson, and their defense, their whole entire defense was in the infirmary room last year. They're lacking depth. Their front seven on defense isn't great. And I have some major question marks about this team. But we'll have to see once they get into the first couple of weeks how this team actually gels after coming off lots of major injuries. So that's the reason why I'm going to have them as 9-8. And at this point, you're probably questioning me, saying, what about Deshaun Watson? How is Deshaun Watson going to play into this situation? Now, I have 2 AFC North predictions. And in this one, this is the one with Deshaun Watson not being suspended or being suspended long term. I have the Cleveland Browns as a 10-7 team. Now, this team has an excellent running game. They have one of the best offensive linemen in the league. They have Nick Chubb, who's extremely efficient. They have Kareem Hunt, who's probably the best second running back in the league. They have the newly acquired Amari Cooper, and their defense is excellent with Myles Garrett, Jadeveon Clowney, Denzel Ward. There's depth all around this defense. This is an excellent team, and Deshaun Watson is going to play in heavily how this team performs. If he gets suspended full-time, this team is going to fail, and they're likely not going to make the playoffs. If Deshaun Watson plays at minimum 10 games, I think they easily can reach the playoffs if Jacoby Brissett can help them at least win 3 games within their first 6 matchups, depending on how long Deshaun Watson is suspended. If Deshaun Watson plays close to a full season, this team is going to be one of the best in the league, and I have them going 10-7 if Deshaun Watson isn't suspended long term. I wouldn't expect the Bengals to completely fall off a cliff due to a Super Bowl slump, even though we've seen Super Bowl slumps absolutely destroy young teams. But this team is so solid. They've got one of the best receiver cores in the league with Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd. They've got Joe Burrow. They've got Joe Mixon. They've got an excellent defense. They have a lot going for them, and I have them 11-6, and I have them winning the AFC North. And a lot of people don't actually think they're going to win. This team is a lot better than almost every team in the NFC North, other than maybe the Browns at their peak. But this team doesn't have any holes. Their linebackers are solid. Their safeties are really good. Their cornerbacks are good. They have a really good defensive line. They have now a good offensive line, receiver core, tight end with Hayden Hurst, quarterback, running back. This team is very good, but I don't think they're going to have a miracle run as they did last year, but I still have them winning the AFC North. Here is the roster without Deshaun Watson, or with Deshaun Watson being suspended for a significant time. This is half of the season or longer. I think that the Bengals win another game, and I also think the Ravens win another game. And actually, without Deshaun Watson in the league, I think that the Ravens actually do make the playoffs, because I think that they could win their matchup versus the Cleveland Browns. I have them at 10-7. I have the Houston Texans as the worst team in the AFC at 4-13. Now, this Houston Texans team is not the worst team in the league, because I think right now the Chicago Bears are the worst team in the league. But this is the second worst team in the league. Unfortunately, this team has a ton of holes in almost every position. I mean, they went into a full rebuild in 2021, trading everybody. They finally just traded Sean Watson, and they got a very good haul for him. But Davis Mills might be a flash in the pan, even though he had a solid rookie year. Brandon Cooks is always super solid. But looking at this roster compared to every other roster in the NFL, it is one of the worst. So I have them at 4-13 and one of the top picks in the 2023 NFL draft. The Jaguars had the most confusing offseason, really, of any team in the NFL. They overpaid for almost all of their free agents, and they had quite a weird draft, drafting Trayvon Walker with the number 1 overall pick, which is going to be a questionable call for a few years out now. But I think the big thing to look out for this Jaguars team in 2022-2023 is Trevor Lawrence, who I think has a good chance to put his name into the top 15 quarterbacks in the league. He has excellent pocket presence. He's a generational talent in all the facets of the word, and he was drafted number 1 overall for a reason, and I think he is going to break out this year. But for the rest of the team, it still has a bunch of massive holes, and this team is not going to be very great. They're going to lose a lot of close games just due to the fact that the roster is going to be weak. They're going to have some year 2 struggles, but hopefully Trevor Lawrence has his breakout year. This Tennessee Titans team did not get that much better over the offseason. They actually got a lot worse. Traded away A.J. Brown for Treylon Burks, younger, cheaper guy. They didn't sign too many players on defense. And Derrick Henry is starting to reach that pinnacle where running backs get older and they get more damaged after a certain amount of carries. And I don't know how good this Tennessee Titans team is going to be, just based purely on the difficulty of their schedule. They face so many good teams this year that I can easily see them having a losing record, and I have them as 8-9. This Colts team really does have the potential to stomp the AFC South. Now, they're obviously going to lose an away game to the Jaguars. I mean, they're 0-7 against the Jaguars when the Jaguars are at home in their matchups. But anyways, I think that they could really be good this year. Jonathan Taylor, he immediately became a top 3 running back after his campaign. Matt Ryan is a solid quarterback who still has elite accuracy. Michael Pittman is set for a top 20 wide receiver year. Their defense is extremely strong with guys like Darius Leonard and DeForest Buckner. They've got a good secondary. I really like this team coming out of the AFC South, especially because they have the Texans, the Jags, and the Titans in the same division. It's undoubtedly the worst division in the AFC, and the AFC is extremely strong this year. So I see them easily getting out of the AFC South, being in the first seed in that division. Okay, we've all been waiting for the AFC West rankings, and at number 4 I have the Broncos.
Broncos country, let's ride!
Just looking purely roster to roster, the Broncos are slightly inferior to everybody else in the AFC West. Their defense is around middle of the league, and their offense is also around the middle of the league. I really like Javonte Williams, and I like Melvin Gordon. I like Jerry Jeudy. I like Cortland Sutton. I like Russell Wilson, and I like their offensive line, but I don't like them above any other team in this division. I think the next closest competition is the Raiders. Whoever wins their head-to-head matchups more is probably going to make the playoffs, but I think the Broncos are still going to be a good team. They're going to compete, and I have them as 9-8. Speaking about their competition, I have the Raiders at 3rd at 10-7, making the playoffs. Now, I don't think that they are going to be one of the best teams in the AFC West purely based on the fact that their secondary is worse than the Chiefs and is worse than the Chargers. They have Nate Hobbs, who I really like, lost Casey Hayward, don't really have safeties. Their linebackers outside of Denzel Perriman are weak, but their defensive line is great. They have Chandler Jones, they got Max Crosby. And speaking about their offense, Josh Jacobs is good. They got Devontae Adams, who's my best receiver in the league. They have Derek Carr, who's a top 15 quarterback. Their offensive line is around middle of the league. They got Darren Waller, who's my 4th tight end in the league. I really like their team. I think they are going to be better than the Broncos. I have them 3rd, 10-7. The Chargers are arguably my favorite team coming into this year. I mean, Justin Herbert is an excellent quarterback. I love what he does. They've got a good receiving core in Keenan Allen, Mike Williams. They got Austin Eckler, who's a fantasy god. He had 20 touchdowns last year. Wow. And their offensive line is above average. They got their defensive additions alone. Khalil Mack for a 2nd-round pick. They got J.C. Jackson. Man, this Chargers team is going to be a fun team to watch. They're going to be primetime TV all the time, but I still have them 2nd, purely based on the fact that I've seen this happen a bunch of times where a young, fun team comes into the league, is gonna come in, be the first seed or whatever, and they're always the second team due to the veteran big boy on top. And that reminds me so much of the Brady versus like the 2010 Jets, and like Brady versus the Dolphins back in the day when they were trying to become good. It just reminds me of that kind of situation where the Chiefs are going to be 1, Chargers are going to be 2, based on experience. And I have the Chiefs as my number 1 team coming out of the AFC West. They have the experience. They've been in back-to-back AFC championship games. They made it to the Super Bowl twice in 4 years, and they've won one. Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback in the league. They have great diversity in the wide receiver room. They have a top 10 offensive line. They have the best tight end in the league, in my opinion, Travis Kelce. And they have around a middle of the pack defense. I think that this Chiefs team is going to be one of the best teams in the league, probably a top 5 team at a minimum. All right, so this is going to bring us to the seed rankings for all the teams. Let's look at them. We got the Bills at 1. We got the Chiefs 2. We got Bengals 3, Colts 4. Moving into the wild card spots, we got the Chargers first at number 5. We got the Browns, and this is with Deshaun Watson playing significant time. I have them at 6, and I have the Raiders at 7. Within the hunt, these are teams that could make the playoffs, that I can see realistically making the playoffs, but not in this video. I'm going to have the Dolphins, and I'm going to have the Ravens. Now moving on to the Watson suspension, I'm going to have same top 4, same 5, except I'm going to have the Raiders moving up to 6, and I'm actually going to have the Ravens slotting up to 7, because if you remember, I gave them 1 more win, and I gave the Browns 2 more losses without Sean Watson, with the Dolphins and the Cleveland Browns in the hunt position, and I think the Dolphins could jump the Ravens if they win more games than him in this scenario. All right, so that's going to do it for this video. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Make sure you stay tuned for the NFC version, and make sure you stay tuned for the awards and predictions and Super Bowl prediction video. I'll see you guys later.